welcome to one more edition of One-on-One in the Barn. Today we have a very, very special guest, international guest. Today we'll be interviewing Ofir. He's the CEO for Agritask. Agritask is an ag tech company that we've invested in the last quarter of 2019. Hopefully this is a very interesting and fun interview. Ofir is a great guy. We're extremely happy with Agritask. It's an interesting company with a very interesting business model. So with no further ado, Shalom Ofir, Baruch haba, Toda shebata. Ofir, just before you start, I'm going to start you off with 4 very direct and easy questions, and then we can take it from there. So my 4 initial questions about you and Agritask are the traditional 4 W's. So who you are, what does Agritask do, when was the company created, and why does it exist, and what service does it serve to people?
Okay, so thank you very much. My name is Ofir Ardon. I'm the CEO of Agritask for the past 2 years. Before Agritask, I was in Israel's leading strategic consulting company for 11 years. Before that, I studied communications and had an MBA. Well, I joined Agritask about 2 years ago. Agritask is an agtech Israeli-based company which developed a platform basically enabling agricultural businesses to take fact-based and on-time decisions related to the operations optimization and for the de-risking. Could be financial de-risking or operational de-risking. The company was founded by Mr. Israel Fryer. He's a serial entrepreneur in Israel. This is his 5th startup, always choosing the most complex problems and very tech-heavy and deep solutions. Through his words, basically the problems that he met in agriculture are the most complex of all. So this is the company which is by far the most complex that he set up a solution for to begin with. That was back in 2010. The major problem that the company was focusing on to begin with was basically how to create visibility in the last industry to be digitized, the last industry and also the largest production floor in the world, which is agriculture. And basically the major problem over there, it was not just the visibility, but the technology adoption issues. Technology adoption issues, basically you're going into a new industry that nobody's willing to change the work methods, and work methods are varying extremely from one potential client to another. And the fact is that nobody's, well, tech savvy, or at least the vast majority are not tech savvy. So having everybody working with many technologies, this is not something possible. So basically Agritask was originally set up to overcome these tech adoption barriers, basically by enabling clients from almost any type of technological starting point, and regardless of the work method, to start working on the platform immediately, and not just immediately, but immediately generating value without changing the work methods which he originally had before. So in order to do that, the company has developed a very, very flexible platform, one that can easily adjust itself to the work methods of the client, to do it extremely quickly and extremely efficiently, so not to be heavy on the resources later on the client and on the company. So basically, a lot of these companies are starting with a specific client, usually a grower of a very specific type with a very specific pain point, and the entire technology is focused on that pain point and on that specific grower. The grower is very happy with it, of course, sometimes even invests in the company. But when later they try to scale up to the neighbor, sometimes they see that they need to actually change the technology or change the work method. It doesn't fit. And to understand Agritask, the first project of the company was not with a grower, but rather with a regional extension project here in Israel to track what we call the Mediterranean fruit fly. During the first project, the company has already had to have 1,000 farms, more or less, or 1,000 plots with about 50 different crop types in the same project, which is something extremely complex in terms of the type of technology that you need to build in order to adjust it to such level of complexity. And this is why originally the technology was developed to respond to kind of endless complexity in this industry. And this is where we are also today.
We know that Agritask is Israel based. You guys are based in Israel, and a lot of the team is in Israel. But really, Agritask has become a global company, right? I mean, you guys are present in many markets. Where are you guys present today with current product and the new product that we're going to talk about?
So basically, if you look at agriculture, plots or fields, they will never be close to the corporate of where the company or the technological company is. So basically, to begin a startup or a company in agtech, you have to work remotely, unless you want to have endless amount of people working at the client site. Now, basically, Agritask started, I think, from the very beginning, working in several geographies. After Israel, or after the first project in Israel, there was kind of demand coming mostly from Latin America to begin with. Brazil was very high on the agenda in terms of demands that came from potential leads, potential clients from various areas of the agricultural ecosystem, not just the growers. And since then, the company has expanded, continued expanding to clients, sometimes global, sometimes local. But if we look at it today, we're working with clients in about 34 countries to date. So the deployments are in fields which cover about 34 countries, actually in all continents today. So we have clients in Latin America, a lot of them in Brazil, by the way, but almost in all countries of Latin America. We have in Africa, a couple of countries in Africa, Southeast Asia, Central and Eastern Europe, now also in Europe and basically in the US. First client starting from about a month ago. So basically there's no continent that we're not in yet in terms of deployment. In terms of offices or the way that we're scattered, so basically a significant amount of the workforce is located in Israel. Actually more than 50%, a bit more than 50% is here in Israel. We have an office in Bulgaria, a lot of developers and people that support the implementation process or the delivery for each and every client. And we have an office in Brazil where we have both sales and customer support and customer success on the field, on the ground. We have, well, not offices, but people scattered in other places in the world working remotely. It could be either developers or customer success in various countries. And for the countries that we don't have physical presence from Agritask, we have a lot of partners that can take care of the clients, either from a sales perspective or from a customer support success perspective.
Perfect. Excellent. As an investor, when we started looking at Agritask, and you know this, we're fairly, I think, knowledgeable in the ag sector. We've done a few deals, but we're really interested in how, precise data on a micro level from the producer side and from basically people that are part of the ag chain, how that data can improve the life of the producer, of trading companies, of banks, of insurers. In other words, how data can really bring more efficiency to the market through transparency and data itself, right? And I guess that's one of the major reasons, or one of the main attractives that we found in Agritask. We are really enthusiastic about the product. That I would love you to talk more about. That is more to the insurance market and to credit markets, just compiling and bringing all these data from Agritask's current product and from other products as well, and integrate them into the database and the product that you guys currently have, to be able to help insurers and banks and credit facilitators to effectively, reach out with insurance policies and credit facilities to people who need them in a much more efficient way. Tell us more about that product. What are you guys doing with the insurance product? Who does it aim to be used by? And what are the major achievements that you guys want to have when that product is working at full scale?
Well, let's start with a bit of an overview of the product, or at least of the platform, because products, it's a derivative of a use case, or a derivative of the segment that we're serving. But if you look at us as a platform, look at the technology as a platform, we first have to understand what it does. So basically, I mentioned there is a visibility issue in the field today, which is the biggest problem in agriculture. This is what the entire, or the initial problem that agtech companies are trying to solve. How to create a visibility of something that grows in the field and you can't look at it at any given time. So basically, you have to understand the roots of the problem. One part of it is because you need to collect data on what is going on in the field, and you use extensive workforce to do it today. A lot of the data, you still need the human sensor, and there's no replacement sometimes to the human sensor. And when you collect this data, either because you collected it because you wrote it down and told your manager what is going on in the field, or sometimes you just memorized it and said, there are pests, or there is a problem, there is an issue. This is not really data. You can hardly call it information, let alone to take this data and actually act upon it in real time, and not just at the end of the season that you see that there are screw-ups that you can no longer do anything about. So this is one source. The other source, you see many companies, many agtech companies in the market, but you see a technology per pain point or for a specific issue. Many technologies if you want to solve all of agricultural problems for a client. And these systems don't talk to one another. So if you really want to have 360 situational awareness, you have to go from one system to another. And if you want to take decisions based on deep analytics that you've done on the data, it can take you forever to take a decision that sometimes you need to take daily. So despite of all these technologies, you still have a problem of visibility. And I think that when you look at Agritask, first when you look at the market, what you see is that it's not just the growers who are suffering, but it's the entire ecosystem around them. You have to look at it as one, okay? There is a grower, but his produce is going somewhere to a food company or to a food manufacturer, and somebody has to sell him the inputs, and it's like one gigantic ecosystem, like one organism, that if one link is not functioning properly, everybody's suffering eventually. So the buyers are suffering because they don't know what to expect at the end of the season. Is it going to be of what quality, what quantity, what should we expect, where is it, when, what happened to these crops before they got to my factory? And for the input providers, how much does the client need? Where is the client? Do I know all the clients? Do they have needs that I'm not aware of right now? And you can continue with that also to the financial industry, like ag insurance companies. What am I insuring here? Is it, what is the risk? What happened last year? Where is the client? What is he growing right now? What is the status of the crop? And in order to manage a portfolio of risk, you really have to know the answers to these questions. And if you don't, what happens is that you kind of like, not guess, but bring something which is more like a one-size-fits-all solutions of financial services, which could be either very expensive for the client or very expensive for the bank or for the ag insurance company. One of the two.
So what you're trying to bring to the market is full transparency and full knowledge on an individual basis for each producer and each company, so that they understand where their money is going to, how that money is going to be invested, how the production is coming out, how is that guy going to repay you, if the risk for a producer in a specific region is completely different from its neighbor, and why, so you're really trying to bring some sort of individuality to each and every producer in the ag chain, right?
I'm basically, by the visibility, I create some type of a profile per plot, per client, whatever you want to call it, and it's democratized. Basically, if you're an ag financing institute, you can use this profiling to come and say, this is the risk here versus the risk in another place. I should provide a different product. Different product means different, different loan at a different time with a different risk price to it or a ticket to it, because you understand what you're going for. You understand the need and you understand the risk profile. This is only one aspect of it, but it's important to note don't generate visibility and then go to all the ecosystem and provide them this visibility. This is not the game we're playing. This is not the competitive environment we're in. What we do is each one of these ecosystem players is becoming our client to enable him to use his own data and what he doesn't have to start collecting on the farms or on the market that he actually wants to target. Okay, so if I work with a gigantic farm or a gigantic corporate farmer, like for example, Bom Jesus, I work with them. I'm their core platform for managing the production floor. I don't take their data and give to the ecosystem because the data is his. I'll never do that. This is something which everybody in this ecosystem is going to be very fanatic about. So basically, I serve these ecosystems, not ecosystems, but segments separately. But you know, I want to say how it connects later on, but let's first understand what we can give to each and every one of them, so how we can serve them on the route that I know that I generate some type of visibility, and then each one of them can get his own benefit from this type of visibility. So if you look at our platform, we generate the visibility first. This means we digitize data collection based on our mobile part of the platform on the field. So field workers can actually collect data in a way that is accessible, quantifiable, and actually usable eventually. Second, we do integrations with all the other available technologies out there. So we have more than 60 integrations today to our platform. This could be anywhere from sensors in the field to tractors or machinery like John Deere, and to ERP systems, to satellite images, to weather stations, to drone images. Everything that is related to agriculture, we know how to integrate.
So if you, sorry to interrupt you, but I think that's really important, you know, because I think it's one of our major criticisms when we're looking at ag businesses, when we're trying to find companies to invest in. So what you're saying basically is we don't really care if the data is coming from your software or if it's coming from any other 60 other providers, as long as they're obviously trustworthy. What you're interested in is in data, you know, and having enough data and information so that your product can price things in the right way, right?
The right data or the necessary data at the right time. Okay, but all accessible from one place, and not just from one place, that everything can be correlated to everything. Because this is the only way that you can actually generate what we call a comprehensive insight or comprehensive insights that you really need. I can give one example if you want. So basically, you know, I need to take an irrigation decision. And to take an irrigation decision, I need to know what is the weather. I need to know what is coming. So basically, like, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow? I need to know the humidity. I need to know my strategy of basically what is the stress level I want to keep in the plant. I need to bring all of this together from various resources to take a single decision when to start watering and when to stop. Okay? So basically, if I use separate systems, I take a partial decision, or I need to go to my, to my Excel sheet and start putting all this data together, start analyzing. What it will take me 3 days. In places like, Israel or in other places, sometimes the 3 days is too much. It's too long. So basically, this is just one example, but I can give you some very complex. Now, if I'll take you to ag insurance, okay? I'm an ag insurer. What do I base the risk profile of a plot based on? I need historic data of precipitation, yield, what did he grow, what is he growing now, what is the status right now at the moment, is he growing where he should, is this an indigenous area, is this good soil to grow on, whatever is growing, and etc., etc., etc. And if I can bring all this data into one place, whether collected now because nobody has it available, or from various resources that I can get from the government, from the client itself, and I can bring it all together, put the model in place. So basically I finished all my problems because now I have the access and I have the algorithm to make use of this access to give an answer. What is the risk profile? And hence what is the right policy? And hence what is the right pricing for this policy?
Ofir, what kind of clients are using the product today? It's a two-way question. So what kind of clients are using the product today? And how do you think you differentiate from all other competitors or most competitors that are out in the market trying to sell their solution as well?
So basically, as I mentioned earlier, we look at an ecosystem perspective. and we're covering currently various segments within the ecosystem. By the way, with a future a vision to connect a couple of them together on the same grower eventually. Basically, today we work either with very large growers, corporate growers, and you can find abundant in Latin America mainly. And they're probably the largest growers in the world are there, and vast amount of them. So basically, for them, we serve as the core platform for managing the operations or for managing the production floor. We work mainly with their agronomic departments. There are some clients, sizable. It could be 200,000 hectares of land managed by the same client, or in forestry, it could be 2 million hectares. So this is one type of client. I have to mention we're crop agnostic. We don't specialize in a specific type of crop, but rather multi-crops. The other segment that we're very strong in is what we call the aggregators. Aggregators are a couple of organizations or a couple of types of organizations in the ecosystem working with many small or medium-sized farms. And they treat it as if it was one operation. And I'll give some examples. Food and beverage companies that they buy from farmers, and they need traceability. They need to know what is going on with the farmer, how is he growing, when is it ready, and they need to know everything about quality, quantity, and what went wrong, to also enable the monitoring, the advice, and everything else that they want to add to the farmer at the end of the day. So it's like managing a supply chain, but closer to the production floor of the crops. So over there we have several clients, by the way, just as an example, General Mills in Brazil, as one example. But we work with coffee buyers, etc. I can give several names here. Another could be on the sell side, basically input providers. Those could be seed providers or even developers, R&D companies, chemicals, beneficial pests, all the type of inputs that are provided to the farms. Over there, they also have extensive operations on the ground. They need to know what is going on with the farm in order to know what to deliver to the farm, or the best delivery that they can give to the farm. Also, they're interested in adding value eventually, and therefore they need a strong communication with the farmer. This is another segment. Another interesting segment in the aggregators is a worldwide phenomenon which is called regional extension projects. Those are owned by governments or by NGOs. These could be small teams in charge of advising and monitoring sometimes hundreds of thousands of farms in a given area. This is impossible to do without a system, unless you're just about the campaigns. So basically, when we provide them with a system, they can actually treat this region as if it was one gigantic farm. And the last is what you mentioned earlier, ag insurance. And ag insurance, actually, it's the same problem, just from a financial perspective or from a risk perspective, having the same trouble. And this is another very important segment for us. I think that something that is very important is what we're aiming for in the future. If you take a look at ecosystems of farmers in remote places or in developing places, sometimes these farmers are not even connected to an ecosystem. Nobody knows they exist. Now, if we connect them under a unifying regional extension project, and afterwards we already know how to serve the buyer and the input provider, we can bring them on board to serve the same plot or the same client that nobody knew existed before, and we can bring the insurance and ag financing. We literally changed the entire ecosystem from 0 to 100. It can take place in just a couple of years. But the basic fact is that the only way to do it is if you know how to capture these small farmers under a unifying theme, under a unifying system, and to bring all the ecosystem players, like I just mentioned, around him. And if you look at the future of what we're expecting to do is basically not to just serve them separately, but to bring all of them together around the farm.
Great answer. I think it answers. I think it answers the question about differentiation. I mean, it's the way that you've put things.
Actually, I do have something to say about this differentiation.
Go for it. Go for it.
This could have happened if we came to the market with something which is more out of the box. Okay, if we came with something which is out of the box, usually an out of the box product had some kind of a purpose. Purpose to tackle an issue for a specific segment of clients. And yes, the good thing about it, it can scale up really quickly. Usually it's very simple to use. And there are the pros and cons for that. We came with a platform perspective, not to come with an out of the box product, but rather with a platform that our clients can mold their issues and problems and work methods on our platform. And this is how we add value. The only way to do that is to come with something that is extremely flexible in architecture terms of the technology. And this is what we've developed. The years went by for developing this type of platform was focused on developing tools that will enable configurations to many, many types of use cases. So basically, we can develop in a heartbeat an out-of-the-box product every month, which is fit or suitable to a different use case because of the many use cases out there. So in our perspective, this is the only way to scale up with the very large corporates in the ecosystem of farming. So we wouldn't have been able to do it with an out-of-the-box product. We had to be flexible enough so we can become, for them, like a development partner, that they can actually mold their issues onto our platform and not vice versa.
Again, the platform-based view of things where people can add on and bring information to your current product. Very, very interesting. That's why we invested in you guys. So, Ofir, moving on to more, I wouldn't say personal, but more on the management side of business. You know, we all love to talk about all the great things that we do and how cool we are and all the merits that we have. But I think the people who are listening, and I myself, I include myself in that, we learn a lot from mistakes, you know, from things that we didn't do or things that we did in a way that we would have done differently, looking back. So my question is regarding that. You know, I mean, as a CEO, I'm sure you've had more positive things than negative things. Otherwise, Agritask wouldn't be in the position that it is today. Maybe you would be a little less Michigan with all the if your life was easier, but it isn't. You know, you're a CEO of an important company. So, I mean, what do you think were or are your major merits in Agritask today? And I mean, looking back, what do you think are your biggest mistakes, or at least what are things that you would do differently or better, looking backwards today? You know.
That's a tough one. You know, what comes to
mind. Everyone hates that question.
I never done it. No, we've done many. And actually, we still do many on a daily basis. And I have to say that sometimes, if I don't look at the managerial perspective, but of the, you know, all of the employees at Agritask, we sometimes even cherish mistakes. At least move, make mistakes, learn from them, come back and do it differently. But yes, I could limit. There's some challenges, I could say, and then there are some mistakes which we didn't cope right with the challenges. Well, we're in COVID times now, so it's easy to talk about it. But let's start with the mistakes.
During COVID, everyone has a legitimate excuse, at least for a small amount of time. So
no, but actually, the challenges, because we don't know if it's a mistake yet or not, so it's easier to. Let's look at. I can think of two big mistakes, okay? And I'm almost positive that I'm not the first one to make this mistake and to try and learn from it. And I cannot ensure that I won't repeat this mistake. I'll try not to. Well, let me think. I think that last year, and that was the first year of me being a CEO in this company, we started growing suddenly. Like, you know, it's not 20 customers anymore. It's like, you know, you grow, you get to 50, you get to 60, and then you have another 100, 200 leads that you need to get to. Your focus sometimes shifts to what's coming, the new sales. And sometimes you think that the customers that you already served or already succeeded with, you know, they don't complain. So maybe everything is good. We need to focus on something else and to put all of the focus on the new upcoming leads. And what we left behind was, you know, realizing that post-sales customer success is extremely important, okay? I cannot emphasize on how important this is. And I think it's easy to forget, especially when you grow, okay? And I think that this was a mistake that we did, that we didn't put too much efforts on that, and we didn't put, you know, we didn't increase the resources over there. And we actually lost clients. And we were surprised, how come we lost clients? They didn't complain. And when we started investing more on the customer success, originally it was to better understand why. Are they not happy? Are they happy because we didn't hear anything? And you need the ears, and you need somebody to be there for the client after the sales in order to understand how he's using the platform. Is it easy for him? Is it good for him? Does he need anything else? Are there opportunities? Are there competitors knocking on the door and you don't know of? So you need these people, one, to remain paranoid, and two, to actually have the feedback, necessary feedback into knowing what to sell, what to promise, what you need to develop, which is by far the most important part, and how to maintain your product the best in the market. Okay, we've invested since then significantly, maybe now to the other extreme, in customer success, and actually we got extremely good feedbacks on the usability of the platform now among the clients, and we get extremely important, priceless insights that go directly into our development efforts. And it's like, it's I can say it's like trivial to say how important it is, but it's not trivial to understand how much you actually need to invest in it. It's as important as the delivery, as the R&D, and as everything else. This is one part. I think that the second mistake is more related to the time that it takes you to fix mistakes. Okay, and this goes to the challenge. The number one challenge that I encountered since I started was basically finding the right people for the right places or for the right roles. Okay. Now, what happens when you make a mistake? Sometimes it's the time that it takes you to realize there is a mistake. Somebody is not good for the job. You need to replace him or to put him somewhere else and to bring somebody else to the job. Sometimes waiting until you take this decision is, it's as bad as, not fixing the problem itself. And identifying the mistakes very quickly and acting upon them very quickly is essential, not just in this type of business, I think for every startup and for every intensively growing company. Okay, this is, if I could say, the mistake. So for us originally, yeah, it took time to identify that there is an issue and we need to bring somebody new, to a role that we didn't have somebody in it yet, or to replace somebody. This is sometimes taking time, and it takes time also to learn how to identify it quickly, faster. So we did have some mistakes over there as well. But I think that there are some challenges that we're trying to cope with, which are not mistakes, but they're challenges. And I think it's as important. I mentioned one of them, which is basically the right people in the right places. But then also, you could say the right go-to-market strategy. It's a new market, and it's still at the, I could say almost at the introductory phase. It's not even in the growth phase yet. And in these markets, I think that putting the right go-to-market strategy in place is very, very difficult. You have to constantly change it or shift it or fine-tune it, whatever you want to call it, but you cannot lock on it. This is the one, now I have to be fanatic about going only after this type. So this is a challenge. Always remaining somehow in focus, but yet to be flexible enough to change it on the go, because the market is shifting, changing, and even the customers or the types of customers are learning something new on a daily basis, and their needs are changing, and you have to really fit the strategy in a very fast moving market. Like, it's not just a moving target, it's a running target. Another one, it's in AgTech, basically for AgTech, okay? It's not a very tech-savvy market, okay? The cycles of sales and the cycles of adoption are, like, this is slow. Cycles are very, very long. And, by definition, you're trying to innovate. And to, push innovation into a very slow-moving market, which is not tech-savvy, this is a very big challenge. And this is something that we're coping with on a daily basis, trying to reinvent the wheel of how to do that on a daily basis. And the fact that we manage to go from one segment to another is always something that we have to focus on, and we have to be, careful about. If we can go from this segment, we can push innovation faster. From that segment, it can pay more for that. So basically, we have to be very flexible in these regards. And I think the last one, and that you probably know, you have first-hand into our board meetings. So basically, that it's a difficulty to maintain, on one hand, the focus, and on the other, to still remain open to opportunities. So it's like the focus and opportunities balance, which I believe is extreme for every high tech or every a startup company. And I think that in agriculture or in any space which is kind of new, just adopting technologies, it's even worse. So
Yeah.
this is
It's
still
hard.
going to
Everything. A lot of things look very tempting, and it's very hard to say no. And many times you have to try them out, and it takes a long time, and it uses a lot of resources, and the outcomes are not what you expect. And it's part of the trial and error. You know, it's
yes, it's like a constant run into finding the right balance.
Any final messages, or what kind of message would you convey to any kind of entrepreneur who's thinking about starting up a business or running a business in the ag tech industry?
Let me think. All right. Well, I can think of a couple. Let me try and put at least three, like on the top of my head.
The major advice, you know, what would be like the major advice?
Well,
you know, like,
don't go into the market if you don't believe you don't have the best product to the market. And the product is much more important than everything else. And I think this is something that you and I will agree on. I think this is the first thing that you told me when you started talking to us a very long time ago. The product, or the best product, is the most important part. It's not trivial, because you can have a component of the product which is the best of the market. So focus only on that. For everything else, just partner. This is like the most important part. If you don't have that, or you're not sure you have that, or you think that, you know, it's commoditized, just don't go into this market. Second thing is, well, cycles, extremely long. If you don't come with patience, okay, don't go into this market. You have to put this into your KPIs, into your expectations, into your investors' expectations, and into your employees' expectations, and to the management expectations. Cycles are long. It takes time. It takes time to sell. It takes time to adopt. And even if somebody adopted and started using your product, don't count on him using it for the next season and for the following season. You have to take into account that you need, like, you know, the sufficient resources with sufficient patience in order to remain standing in this market and not be out after a year or two. I think this is the most important.
Perfect. You know that I agree with you with the product. You know that I'm paranoid about having the best product. I think companies with the best products out there will eventually be worth a lot of money, and those that don't have a good product and have all the fluff around will eventually be a bad company. So I fully agree with that, Ofir. I think we've learned a lot from what you've been able to share with us. I've been very close to the company. I admire what you guys are doing. I really believe that there's a huge amount of space to be explored in the ag sector. And I especially think that when it comes to the financial services and the insurance services in the ag sector. So congratulations for what you guys have done so far. You've mentioned COVID. I think the company has survived the pandemic extremely well. I mean, the revenues are basically in line with what we expected. So that comes to prove that, you know, it's technology applied to agriculture will be used more and more throughout time. We're in the beginning, as you said. So
actually,
there's
I wish that our pace, or you know, the narrative that we're going through now, or the growth that we're experiencing now in the COVID, will continue after the COVID.
Yeah, so do I. I think you guys will. I think 2021 is going to be an incredible year for the company. You know, with the insurance product more matured, and with people understanding how powerful technology can be in helping them on the field. Very, very interested to see what happens in the near term future. So, thank you very much again for your time. If there is any final message that you would like to convey, please go ahead. Otherwise, thank you very much again.
All right. Thank you very much, and success to all of us.
Thank you.